talking about the contrast with AI and automation and things that AI can't do yet. There's a lot of people betting on that too. There's
Hmm.
a new term. I read this in the Wall Street Journal. There's a term called halo, that's really like catching on. Um, a lot of the private and public money is flowing to our industry from an investment standpoint. Halo stands for heavy asset low obsolescence. So, you know
Hmm.
what was boring and dirty and not sexy, right? Is become very sexy in the investment world because they're saying, look, everything's getting disrupted out there, and
Yeah.
we don't even know how what it's gonna be like in a year, 5 years from now. But what we do know is these big, heavy machines that make stuff and fix stuff, we've gotta have that. And so that term I think is really interesting, HALO, heavy asset, low obsolescence. So,
Hmm.
that just goes to show you how important our industry is right now in this truly, like, once in a century inflection point that our world is in right now.
Welcome to Making Sparks, the podcast where we ignite your passion for metal fabrication and fuel your business success. Join industry leaders and dive deep into the world of metalworking. From business insights to tips of the trade, Making Sparks is your forge of knowledge. During each episode, discover success stories, innovative solutions, and expert interviews that light the path to business growth. Subscribe today and grow and improve your company, and let's make sparks fly together.
Welcome back to Making Sparks. I'm your host, Casey Velker, with my co-host virtually, Matthew Nix,
What's up?
and we have some kind of sad. I don't know. It might be sad news. I don't know if it's sad news because that might be or it will be the last time we say I'm the host and you're the co-host. Even though everybody that comments knows that Matthew's really the host and I'm just the guy that tells the dad jokes. That we haven't told a dad joke in like 10 episodes, so there's that. But I'm not keeping score. Anyway, Matthew, why did I just say that this could be sad news, and why did I say that might be our last time saying I'm the host and you're the co-host?
Yeah, you didn't, waste any time with any kind of a buildup or anything, so, obviously, if you haven't figured it out by now, Casey and I are here recording our last episode as co-hosts. I'm still gonna be involved, but taking a step back in a little bit different capacity, and so, we are really excited, to share with you guys and introduce the new host of Making Spark, and Brendon DiVincenzo's I can't even say it.
I was like, "Oh, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get
No,
caught up on it."
DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo?
DiVincenzo.
I didn't get the Z part. DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've even heard it like 5 times, I still can't say it. It's
It's
the
Vincenzo
tongue
with the D in front of it. You know,
DiVincenzo.
I thought it would get better. There's a basketball player, Dante DiVincenzo. Now he played for I think played for the Milwaukee Bucks, and I
Was he
thought that
good?
would yeah, he was really good. He
Okay.
actually his claim to fame was I think he went off in the national championship, and it was like a brief moment in time where people understood how to say my last name, and then everybody forgot. It's all good. It's
Uh,
all good, guys. I'm excited to be here.
yeah, and
Aw.
Brennan and I actually, we met a couple of years ago. He was an early guest on the show. I actually think we were on Making Chips together. Uh,
Yeah,
I think
it was
we
no,
called
it
it a
was one of the
Making
first
Sparks
episodes of
episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
it was one of
was,
the
it
first
was.
Making Sparks episode. Yeah,
That's
it was
right, yeah.
myself and RJ Reed, who's still a
I
very good
wasn't
friend of
there.
mine. Yeah, you and Nick had come up to
Yeah. Well, that's what threw
our
me off.
offices. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was Nick and I that recorded it, and Casey
Hmm.
wasn't there. That's what threw me off and made me think it was Making Chips. But nonetheless, all part of the same family of podcasts. Uh, we had a fun episode. We were at Bystronic at that time at their
Hmm.
US headquarters, learning a lot of cool stuff about lasers. And, so yeah, and Brendan will share more, about, where he's at today and what he's doing and definitely, um, very well versed in the Making Sparks world, and gonna just be a fabulous continuation of this. So we'll circle back around to that. But Casey and I thought it would be kind of fun to share a few of our favorite memories of the show for the past couple years. And maybe before we do that, Casey, maybe just kind of share with the audience why we're making this transition and kind of what's going on. If you want to jump in and go first.
Yeah. Well, I think even before that, like, why did we even start making Sparks? You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
great
people
point.
may or may not know if like if they didn't listen to the very first episodes. The very first thing that Matthew and I did was, uh, Matthew had just celebrated like at Nick's company is 100x growth, and we wanted to tell like a short. I called it like a limited podcast series about that 100x growth, and so me and Matthew teamed up. I basically just interviewed him about their 100x growth, and we at the time, Matthew was being a guest on Making Chips and, becoming friends with Nick and all those guys over there, and we just kinda like, "Man, wouldn't it be cool if we worked with Making Chips on this?" And so, I think after those first, like, 8 episodes or I don't even know how many, I think it was, like, 8 episodes, um, it was obvious that partnering with Making Chips made sense to launch
Well, yeah,
Making
you and
Sparks.
I, yeah, let's back up a minute. We started doing that, and then you and I thought, well, this could be a cool podcast. Let's share it in a podcast format. We were just recording. We hadn't even published anything. And then
Yeah.
as you mentioned, during that time, I had been a guest a few times on Making Chips and got to know the guys. But then that's when I said, "Well, shoot, if we're going to do this, like, why would we recreate the wheel? Like, these guys have a great platform, a lot of similarities. Although theirs is very much sort of niched around the machining, trades, but there's a lot of overlap, of course, as we know, and we could make our show lean more towards the fabrication side, and so, yeah, I approached, Nick and Jason at the time, the guys, and said, "Look, if we're gonna do this, why don't we just partner up and do it together?" And so, that's where Making Sparks was born. Yeah.
I think that was almost 3 years ago, maybe. I didn't do my homework to look up how long ago it was, but I do know it was, at least 3 Fab Techs. I think we've recorded
Well,
3 different Fab Techs, haven't we?
Wow.
Like, when we record a lot of episodes?
I think it's 2, but yeah, I think it was, back in November was 2 years. So, yeah,
Okay,
2.5 years or so,
yeah.
but a
So
lot of episodes, and man, I was scrolling through our episodes before this, and just kinda going down memory lane, and man, you kinda just like so many things in life, you're just grinding and focused, and you don't ever stop and look back, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, we've had a lot of episodes and a lot of great people on." It's been pretty cool. It was bittersweet today to go back through there, but yeah, Casey, thanks for not letting me get ahead of myself. We need to talk about why we started it, and I love listening to Making Chips. I was an avid listener, along with many other podcasts, but loved listening and then getting to be a part of the show, and then having people reach out. Even when I was just a guest on Making Chips, I would have people reach out on LinkedIn or email me or whatnot and say, "Hey, listen to the episode," and they had some kind of takeaway, and I just reflected on how many podcasts had helped me and how many people had helped me along the way, and I thought, what a really neat opportunity to be able to share with others, and then selfishly too, get to meet a lot of great people, and I've learned so much from other guests along the way, and so that was kind of the why behind starting this, and I think, some of what we're thinking about doing in the next chapter, I think is still a continuation of those same ideas. So, Casey, you wanna jump in and share kinda what's on your mind and what you're moving towards?
yeah, so well, and first, like, for me, I always joke, but Matthew basically said he didn't wanna host a podcast by himself, so he kinda said, "You're gonna come co-host with me," and it's funny that I always said I was the host, but, I loved getting to, learn more about the fabrication industry. I think we're gonna hit on some of our favorite moments, but, like, just so like, the authenticity of everybody that we've had on this podcast and how much people are willing to be transparent about either with their running a business or how they're sharing their culture at their work or how they're sharing their core values or how they're sharing or how they're marketing their business, things like that. That really got me excited, and, it's just it's been really fun for me. Um, for me, like, what's next? Like, I've always had this, like, passion, and I really want to focus a lot of what my energy is on culture and marketing. So, like, you know, Nick's companies has enabled me to do a lot of, like, culture-based videos, and so if and when I decide to do another podcast or something like that, it's gonna be around how people use video to share their culture basically and share who they are and the real authenticity, especially with AI and everything like that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Also, um, I've always been sharing like how small my business is, but I'm in the whirlwind right now of running a business where like we're hiring and it's just a constant we were talking about before we hopped on here, people hopping on my calendar and things like that. And so like I feel like for me, like I wasn't giving Making Sparks the attention and that our audience, we've built up an audience, we've given them some great guests to listen to. We're just like the channel for them to hear all these really smart people talk about their fabrication businesses or tools or equipment. And when we are saying, all right, we got to try to get this recorded, and everybody knows when we're doing these podcasts, you're trying to record them ahead of time so that it just keeps on flowing and things like that. When we can't give them the attention they deserve, then it's probably time for us to find someone like Brendon to give it the attention that it deserves. So that's kind of one of the reasons when me and Matthew first said, we're like, are we ready to step away? I definitely was like, yeah, I think you probably need you at least need to find a co-host that is a lot smarter in the fabrication industry than the guy who just tells dad jokes the whole
Well,
time.
yeah, Casey, thanks for sharing that. I think that's what you just said is very relatable. A couple things I want to say. Well, first, real quick, you're moving, so the audience clearly understands you've moved from a kind of a solo, I don't know what the word is, solopreneur, I think,
Yeah, you got it. Good job.
solopreneur, to really building a business with a team. And I bring that up because I think a lot of our listeners are have been or are in a similar point in their journey. And so that leads me in the next thing I was going to say. We joke a lot about you not being from the fab industry and uh, kind of asking the dumb questions, but I do think that's brought a really nice element to the show because um, you know I went through that phase too, by the way, if any of the listeners aren't aware. I mean, when I started in the business, it was 4 family members, no W-2 employees, and we were about 225 team members today. And so, I'm looking at it from those perspectives, and Casey's brings that really small business element where he's going through those things right now. And then I think also just you, quote unquote, asking the dumb questions. I think it's been a really cool, I really do. It's been a cool element of the show. And so, Brendan is going to bring a whole nother angle to the show. He's very technical. I'm really not a technical leader. I mean, I've grown up in the business, I've worked with my hands, but I never really gravitated toward the real technical aspects of the business. Um, and Brennan's going to bring a really unique new dynamic to the show as well. And Brendan would just would encourage you to bring other personalities in as well. I know you'll do that, and of course, I'm gonna. Shared with the Making Chips guys. I'm happy to continue to be a sort of a regular guest or guest host, if you will. And still, we Casey and I've put a lot into this, and uh, want to
Yeah,
continue to
I
see
think
it be
there's a
successful.
yeah, there I mean, there to your point, Casey, I think, yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that go, "Oh, we're gonna host a podcast." Like, how hard can that be? It's I'm happy to do it, but it's been a lot of mind share, right? When you're producing content on a regular basis, it's a different channel for your brain to think about. Like if I'm meeting somebody, I'm maybe I'm evaluating could they come on the show? What's their story about? And it's made me a little bit more naturally curious in conversations. But then, I mean, there's also the back end overhead. I mean, there's a full-time manager and editor of the entire Making Chips podcast community that I've been fortunate to meet and get introduced to, and you guys are both very well respected by them, and you'll continue to be a part of this little community. So I thank you guys for what you've done with this. I agree. There's absolutely a space for this podcast. I'm glad it exists, and it's a tremendous honor to be offered the opportunity to take it over as a host. I'm excited for where this can go.
Yeah, yeah.
Brendan, sorry, I was just say, Brendan, why don't you tell? I know I'm skipping around a little bit, but um, tell people a little bit about your background and why you're wanting. I mean, you kind of already talked about a little bit why you want to be the host here, but tell us a little bit about your background.
I've been in manufacturing essentially my entire career. I hold a pair of engineering degrees from Northwestern, so I've been a Midwest guy my entire life. I've been basically around Chicago. Met my wife there in college. We've been together a long, long time. My first job out of college was actually I worked for Klein Tools, the guys that make screwdrivers and the lineman pliers, and that was an interesting look into what it takes to get stuff made. And they still make a lot of stuff in the United States, but as a design engineer, you're not actually out there making stuff. Um, Paul, who runs Machine Shop Mastery, and we've talked about this. We're both Formula SAE participants. I actually ran the team my last year, and I really, really enjoyed the the hands-on components of that. Is going up, running a CNC machine. The first piece of fabrication equipment I actually ever really used and kind of mastered by myself was a water jet that we had in the basement of the machine shop at Northwestern, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I didn't know anything about lasers at that point. When I left Klein Tools, I wanted to get back into really more closer to the shop floor as an engineer, and I missed that at Klein Tools. Nothing but respect for the company. I had a great boss there. Still talk to him once in a while, and I wanted to get a lot closer to it. I found this small company called Microlution, and I started working there as a design engineer. And that was a very small company. I think they were 12 people when I joined. I think it's three founders out of the University of Illinois, and they were making very high precision, very high performance machining centers. So things that would go machine medical devices, things like that. And they were sort of brought into this world of precision laser ablation. And fast forward 3 years later, I was kind of the product line owner of their 5-axis precision laser uh, products, which are still being sold. They've been acquired by a couple of companies now. They're part of United Machining, so I still have some good context there, but learned a lot about specifically machine tools. So I've sort of done the soup to nuts experience. I've built machine tools up from scratch. I've installed machines in Europe and Asia. I've worked on jet engine components, medical devices, automotive things, but that was kind of really, really small things. You wanted to put 100 holes in a part that was going to be used in surgery that was the size of, half the size of your pinky nail, and it was made out of precious metal. It's it's a pretty cool application. So I was getting pretty good with lasers, but just kind of got burned out. I was living the working 90 hours a week, but um, not really seeing the work life balance. I was getting married, and knew I wanted to make a change. Had a short stop over at another company, and then the boss that hired me kind of went somewhere else, and he was the reason I kind of took the job in the first place. So I literally typed the word laser into Indeed, and I had this recruiter guy call me and say, "Hey, have you heard about these guys? They make these big sheet metal lasers." I was like, "Oh yeah, I mean those are really big. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to them." Went in, and I'll tell this story because we're still friends. I went in, interviewed with the VP of sales, and it's me, the um, HR lady there, and she's very nice and chatty and bubbly and everything that you would expect. And the VP of sales kind of walks in 5 minutes later. We're just chatting, we introduce ourselves, and we're talking back and forth, and I'm just kind of explaining my background on machine tools, and was pretty upfront. Like, I don't know anything about how metal fabrication business is run, but I know machine tools really well. And he's the VP of sales, right? So he's got his phone on the table there, and it rings. And I see him look at it, and I look at him directly, and I say, "If there's money on the other end of that phone, go take the call. I'll be right here." So he he smiles, he takes the phone, he goes goes into his office next door, and he comes back out, and he's got a bell on the outside of his door. He comes back out, and on his way around the corner, he rings the bell. I'm like, "Sounds like that was a good phone call." Uh, and he's like, "You bet it was." Okay, great. So the interview lasts about, I don't know, 10 minutes longer than that. I think I spoke to him for about 15 minutes total. And then he gets up and he's like, "Okay, cool. Yep, well, Debbie will be in touch with you, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Okay, thanks. It was really nice to meet you." And that was it. I'm like, "Oh, okay." I guess I didn't have what he was looking for. And the recruiter guy called me back. He's like, "You did great. They want you to meet the president." I was like, "Well, I wasn't expecting that at all based on how long that interview went." So yeah, then I started working at Bystronic, and that was interesting. I was hired on as the laser product manager there, laser and automation product manager there. This was right as they had announced their 10 kilowatt laser. So I came in kind of completely oblivious to how much the game was changing on fiber lasers and fabrication, and I was there almost 10 years. That was an excellent, amazing ride, and really not just because the equipment is cool and it does cool stuff. I mean, that's certainly part of it, but the people that I've met along the way, the stories that I've seen them tell, and kind of being a part of it as a supplier and partner and coach to them has really been what's kept me in this industry and why I will continue to be in this industry. Um, Not to mention one of the coolest perks of my job is basically how it's made. I'm in hundreds of
Yeah.
fab shops, uh, a year if I'm doing my job right, talking to people, seeing how they're manufacturing stuff, offering them advice, getting feedback on things, and now that I've been in the industry long enough to really watch people grow businesses in a meaningful sense, right? You're at the same time scale of, right, like a child growing up. And I also have 2 kids, so don't worry about the dad jokes. I'll carry that tradition forward. Um, but yeah, seeing people succeed is really the the thing that gets me up in the morning, that kind of fills my bucket, is watching people, through their own efforts and using equipment and using it well, but learning and growing and providing for their employees. That's a huge, huge, like, constant source of feel good.
Yeah, I agree, Brandon. I was gonna say one of the things that's been most rewarding and fun about my job is going into all these plants and seeing, our customers. The
Hmm.
stuff that I've gotten to see how it's made because we're supporting these customers in some small way is and Casey's got a taste of that too with doing videography for many of these people, but I've said so many times that the general public, it's a shame how little of appreciation we have for how things are made and what goes into it, and it is so
Hmm.
rewarding to get to see that. So, yeah, I think that's
I do
something that's fun to
I do
share.
think, like I do think, like, these podcasts, like Making Chips, Making Sparks, some of the people that we have met on LinkedIn and at FabTech has totally changed or flipped the script on, the general public getting to know, like, because like, the core or of manufacturing as a whole is starting to catch up and become more outgoing and telling stories, right? Doing podcasts, doing video, writing blogs, things like that. I do think the general public's becoming more aware of just how important and, um, I keep going back to, like, the people that are being that work in manufacturing and more specifically fabrication and things like that. Um, you're seeing that more, and Matthew, obviously, you've seen it with, high schools, like, not pushing college on everybody. They're pushing them to go into the trades a little bit more now because a little when the pandemic I think it's so funny, I was listening to podcasts, and it's so funny how many of the podcasts have to say something like this when they talk about a significant part of their business, talk about the pandemic. Well, you can even say that in the manufacturing industry, the pandemic opened up a lot of people's eyes to the security of a manufacturing job or a fabrication job or a trades job and things like that, and so, yeah, I think it's kinda cool that as I've kind of came into this world, I've been seeing a lot more of the stories being shared, and I think the general public is becoming their eyes are opening. There's still a long way to go, but their eyes are opening to what you guys are all doing.
Yeah, and talk about AI now, right? There's AI is not going to figure out the best way to fix your part yet, right? AI is not going to solve a lot of these complex problems yet. I keep having to add that word yet. It might get there, but it's not going to take over every single manufacturing job in the United States. I think manufacturing is going to become even more important than it is now here in the coming years and decades. Right? We
Yeah.
spent, you know, you you look at the broader narrative of that, we've spent, in the collective we, we spent the last 50 years kind of pushing it all out of the country. Well, it's created kind of a vacuum now that a lot of it needs to come back.
Yeah.
And it is slowly coming back. We've seen a lot of growth through a lot of the uncertainty that I'll describe kind of the last 18 months of with all the things that have been going on. But I still always come back to people. You meet a lot of optimists in this industry that really take to heart the fact that they control their own destiny, and I'm going to grow because I want to. Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna do things and make more things because that's what I want to do.
Well,
There's sort of a big self-direction feedback loop that exists within that's hard to find other places.
Well, Brennan, you're right in the center of this, but automation and technology is really leveling the playing field between the U.S. and other countries. There was this huge labor gap, right? So that where
Hmm.
it was difficult for the U.S. to compete, but technology is really leveling that gap to some extent, and to some extent, and the more we lean into the tech and the automation, the more we close the gap in terms of being globally competitive, right? And so
Right.
I think that the creativity and American spirit and all that is really still very prevalent in the manufacturing industry. And so that's exciting too. I find that to be very exciting. And with the AI boom that's going on, there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure happening in our country. For us personally, we're having a record year of sales, so there's a lot of reasons. And I know I talk to a lot of business owners in manufacturing and a lot of optimism right now. So it's a fun, it's exciting to be involved in this industry. You mentioned, talking about the contrast with AI and automation and things that AI can't do yet. There's a lot of people betting on that too. There's
Hmm.
a new term, I read this in the Wall Street Journal, there's a term called halo, that's really, like, catching on. Um, a lot of the private and public money is flowing to our industry from an investment standpoint. Halo stands for heavy asset low obsolescence. So,
Hmm.
what was boring and dirty and not sexy, right, is become very sexy in the investment world because they're saying, "Look, everything's getting disrupted out there, and
Yeah.
we don't even know what it's gonna be like in a year, 5 years from now, but what we do know is these big, heavy machines that make stuff and fix stuff, we've gotta have that, and so that term I think is really interesting, HALO, heavy asset, low obsolescence. So
Hmm.
that just goes to show you how important our industry is right now in this truly, like, once in a century inflection point that our world is in right now.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's certainly an interesting time to be in manufacturing because it's growing and changing at the same time. I think most things typically do that, but if you go back to what does a person need to know to be competent in manufacturing nowadays? I mean, that's a whole podcast on its own, um, right? Or at least a couple of episodes of what how did the skill sets change now? Right? It
See,
used
this
to
is
be all
this is
right.
why this is why you got great ideas already. This is why Brennan's taking over.
um, it used to be like, oh, well, if you knew G code, you were in the top tier right there.
Yeah,
Now it's like nobody even needs to know that anymore, right? Nobody programs G and M codes by hand, and
yeah,
all my laser machines still the low level machine code is still G and M code, right? But it's not something that you have to go up and type everything into the controller. We've got software that does that. So you need to know the software. You need to know a lot more about all the nuances of the process. Because while your roles get more efficient, you wind up doing more broad things. So being specialized in kind of one little thing isn't really the best path to a manufacturing career. And I think a lot of um, the education in that we offer isn't structured that way. It's kind of a choose your own adventure, paint by numbers. So you wind up with a lot of these sort of really interesting skills gaps that people are trying to cover the ones that we've seen be really successful are people that go out and they create their own training departments and have really taken a hands-on approach to that to say, no, I need to internalize developing the skill set because I need it that bad. It's that critical to my business. Um, they come in and say, all right, yeah, this is we're going to spend this amount of time and money educating our workforce because nobody else is going to do it for us. A lot of people will come to podcasts like this looking for that type of insight, and I view this as a form of educational content. There's always something that I learn going back through some of the old Making Sparks episodes. Like I never really thought about that. Like that's a good insight. That's a good story. That's a good way that that problem was solved. That was creative.
And
Hearing that, and people nowadays too, they're craving authenticity more than ever,
Yeah,
especially with AI. Like
yeah, yeah,
I'm a big user of LinkedIn. My company markets a lot on LinkedIn. I Every time I see bullet points and M dashes, I'm like, I'm out of here. Keep going. You didn't write that.
yeah,
the
yeah,
dashes get me every time. I actually have to tell ChatGPT, "Please don't put a dash in there." You know, like, and that's not
yeah,
just for that's for anything that I have it right, even,
yeah,
like, if it's just an overview for a proposal or something, I'm like, "Please don't put that dash in there."
Right.
yeah.
And the ironic part about that is we trained the AI. We started the M dashes and they took it from us.
Someone told me that. Someone goes, "I use MDash all the time," so it's very see, my always thing was, like, when I used to write blog posts, I was very, like, clean cut
Hmm.
corporate writing, so, like, AI fit right into me, like, no one knew. No one
Yeah.
knew 'cause I was already robotic, so, anyway, uh,
Well, well, we'll digress from that. I could go on all day about that. Brendan, what you were just saying is a perfect segue into how I think we need to kind of wrap up the show, and that is to officially pass the microphone to you. And what I think what we'd love to hear for the remainder of the show is what's your vision for the future? That's what I want to hear about. That's what hopefully the audience wants to hear about. And what are you excited about with making Sparks, and what's kind of your vision for the future of this show?
My vision is really to keep this a people first podcast. That's really why we're doing it. Um, there's a lot of interesting stories to tell in manufacturing, and I think there's a lot of breadth to explore within the interaction of um, equipment investments, shop management strategies, and the stories that that creates. I've watched people invest smartly and really go all in on technology, and that's paid dividends for them. I'd love to share a lot of those success stories.
Yeah, I hope you
Um,
do. That's
that
one area I would like to say that my favorite episodes. Nothing against the suppliers or professional. We've had folks on that are like professional support or suppliers. A lot of great stuff too, but personally, my favorite, and probably because I'm a fellow, fab shop owner, is having those fab shop owners and leaders on. I have gotten I've learned so much every single time as the host is, I'm making notes and going back and I've built some great relationships with people that I hope to be able to continue on and to share and help each other. And so I hope and you have such a great opportunity because you're installing equipment in these places. You're getting to know these people, and
mhm,
you've probably got a Rolodex of great shops that could all share different stories. So I hope you'll do that and and build on that, take that to the next level. That's something that I wished we could have done a better job of is had a better network of great shops out there. And toward the end, we started getting people reaching out to us asking to be on the show, which is tremendous. I mean, that's where you want to get to, that we're not out
right.
looking for these shops. And so I think you'll be able to build on that. And then plus you've already got a network of great shops. So
Yeah, we get to see people at really key points in their business trajectory and watch them kind of change and grow in big ways with the way that they invest in equipment. We've got a customer right now out west that they're kind of doing it all at once, but they're already starting to see the impact of that of moving to a bigger building and buying a couple of faster laser cutting machines and new press brakes and welding equipment and really just 2.0ing their business with some of this equipment and the the impacts of that are just absolutely staggering in terms of not only commercial success but they were running 24/7. Now they're not, right? They have their lives back. because
Yeah.
they're not tied to what can my equipment put out in a 24-hour period. And those are the types of stories that I think people generally relate to. And I'm also excited to kind of, be a little bit of a technical evangelist for newer technologies or technology trends in the industry. I think that's one of the things that really made me successful as a product manager, is being able to get up and talk in front of a bunch of people about, here, this is what this sheet metal laser does, and why it's important and why you should care about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that will be a nice element to add into the show. And with you being a supplier and being on the service side of the business, I think you'll be able to bring that element to the show very naturally and organically. Therefore, having fab shop owners and leaders, like I mentioned, I think will be very complimentary and make for a great dynamic. And again, I'm more than happy to join back in as a guest from time to time. I'd love to participate in any way. So don't be a stranger. Please reach out. Maybe Casey will even join once in a while for a corny dad joke.
That's right. Hey, and we still have I'm in shops too. Matthew, I mess around with manufacturers every once in a while, and I stick cameras in their faces. Our team was just down in, Nashville filming with, Hirobotics, which is, a direct, like, relationship we made because of this podcast, and we have a blast hanging out with them. They create cobots, right? And you guys were talking about how, leveling the playing field and everything, and I was just thinking that, I was like, leveling the playing field and keeping the human focus, like, technology doesn't have to replace humans, it can support it and
Exactly.
do just as good, right?
Yeah, and some of the best owners that I've dealt with have are very purposeful about the way that they invest in technology. Say, I don't want, yeah, I've got a couple open headcount here, and yeah, I'm going to invest in a new piece of equipment with automation. I'm not getting rid of anybody. Why
Yeah.
would I do that?
Yeah.
Then I have more openings to fill. I want to do more with the same, right? I want to
Mhm.
double my business, but I want to keep the headcount growth to 10-15%.
Yeah,
Right?
and maybe and take care of
That's
those
how
people, right?
techno and take care of those
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And give them jobs that aren't, dull, dirty, and dangerous. Like I think people romanticize, "Oh, the 1960s were so great." Um, it's like, "Oh, yeah, if you wanted to buck rivets by hand all day, yeah, you could do that, and that's what the economy supported." But technology's advanced to the point where that's not really allowed anymore,
Yeah.
right? Those were not great jobs to do. They paid well relative to the skill required, but they weren't great jobs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are better jobs out there because of this technology.
For sure. Yeah, allowing your workforce to do the things that are, we tend to think about what's less physically demanding and all that, and maybe that's true, but really, I think the more important thing is it's more fulfilling. I mean,
Mhm.
if you can allow them to not do monotonous tasks that can be easily automated, then you can free your humans up to work on the things that are more complicated that require critical thinking and that aren't monotonous and
Using
that are more
yeah.
fulfilling.
Mhm.
That's we're going down a tangent here. I know you're going to have great episodes about these
Yeah.
topics, but anyways, yeah, I think coming up on our time here. So, Brendan, just any last thoughts you want to share as far as look into the future and
Do you want
what's on
people to
your
still listen, or do you just want them to not listen anymore?
I No, nobody should listen to this podcast anymore.
Reverse psychology.
It's over. It's over. We No, I'm super happy for the opportunity. I was really excited when Nick reached out and said, "Hey, we were looking at Matt and Casey. We're looking at um, changing their scope of activities a little bit, and moving away from being full-time hosts, and we jumped on it. So I'm glad that this worked out, and it's a tremendous honor to continue to build what you guys have built so far, and taken into the future. Keep educating and entertaining people interested in manufacturing and getting better at their game.
Yeah, for sure. And Casey shared what was kinda on his mind for the future of podcasting, if there is one for him, and I'm kinda in the same boat, like, I've been kicking around the idea that, if and when I come back to podcasting, My wife and I are really passionate about family business. I think some of the listeners are aware. I'm fifth generation in our business. The book over my shoulder here is kind of the story of our fifth generation business, and we've become involved in various different family business organizations, some locally, some nationwide. But just real passionate about that topic. And Nick Gollner, um, the one, the
Mhm.
OG from making chips, also multi-generational family business. It's a topic that, and uh, his grandfather immigrated from Europe and founded their business, and they've got a cool story too. But I say that to say I shared that with Nick, and he's like, "Oh, you got to do it, Nick, you got to do
Mhm.
it." So Lindsay and I have thought about co-hosting our own podcast about family business. So I'm going to take a break from podcasting for a while and just make sure that that's really kind of where I feel like the Lord's calling me with my time and energy. But anyways, if we come back, we're thinking about bringing that back. So that'd be kind of fun to bring into the family of podcasts here as well. But we're excited to contribute and support Making Sparks any way we can, and uh, we're excited to now I can listen. I never listen when we do it, when we produce them. I don't it's way too weird.
Yeah.
I've never listened to one that Casey and I have done. We record them, we put them out there, uh, and I've got people reach out, that listen, and that's so rewarding just because it's like you feel like it's actually worth it. If just one person says that they took
Mhm.
something away from the podcast. So I encourage you guys to reach out to Brendon. If you took something away, let him know because that really is what gets you excited to keep doing it. Is like, okay, somebody took something out of this.
Yeah, when we were first, kinda discussing the opportunity, that was one of the things that Nick and Mike really hammered home was the community involvement, is really something that they've never seen or experienced before, and now they're kinda hooked on it. And really, that's why we're doing this. We're doing this for you, the listener, the person that's in their car on their way to work, thinking about how to how to be optimistic about their career in manufacturing and learn more and level up, right? That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this has been fun. Brennan, we're gonna officially pass baton to you and wish you all the best. And we'll be here on standby if you want us to join in at any point in the future. And now we can just go back to listening to the podcast.
All right, I've got at least 2 listeners. Great.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, me
Yeah,
too. Thank you
yeah.
guys. And our next episodes of Making Sparks, I'll come prepared with a dad joke. We'll call it the Casey Volker Living Memorial dad joke of the of the episode.
Very
But I've got
good.
2 boys, so they're 2 and 5, and I'm at the point now where I need to up my game on that too. So it's a good challenge.
Very
But
good.
Making Sparks community, I'm super glad to be taking this over. Again, very grateful to Matt and Casey for everything that they've done with this program, and you'll be hearing from me and a lot more guests about stories for manufacturing, fabrication, laser cutting, welding, forming, finishing, all of that good stuff is right here. So
Well, Brendan,
happy to.
you gotta practice the sign off, buddy. So
Let's show them it one last time, Matthew. If you're not making sparks,
you're damn sure not making money.